Welcome to Bloodbath and Beyond. Today we review Club Dread, a vacation to die for.
Directed by and starring Jay Chandrasekhar and co-starring Bill Paxton, Kevin Heffernan, Brittany Daniel, Steve Lemmy, Paul Sauter, Eric Solansky, and Jodan Ladd. This is a movie from the team Broken Lizard brought us Super Troopers and Beer Fest, but this time it's a horror comedy that takes place on Pleasure Island, hosted by Coconut Pete, a Jimmy Buffett knockoff, and his team of resort staff. Everything seems like a blast, but little do they know, there is a killer on the loose with a machete, and they're chopping up the staff.
And they say he took that same machete, chopped his own dick off, and ran screaming into the jungle.
This is a recommendation from Patreon from Twisted Duality. He's recommended quite a few bangers in his day, including Pontypool, Dog Soldiers, and just like a ton of stuff. Somehow he gets randomly picked every second month. Well, this one isn't quite suitable for the season. It's time to go down south for a little while with Club Dread. So what do we like?
I was really impressed with the story of this film because Broken Lizard is really known for their comedy, but they did a great whodunit, and that's what this film is. It's more of a mystery trying to figure out who is the killer. It's like adult Scooby-Doo almost. You know, you're just waiting to have that great mask reveal, and I liked the guessing game. They really did a good job building up all these red herrings and having me wonder who it actually is until the very last minute.
How the hell are we supposed to do our job when somebody is killing the dick out of everybody on the island?
Well, it's obviously a horror comedy. There are really tense moments, and you're always like on your toes. The way that they lead you on is great. I mean, from the get-go, anytime somebody says something, they hold the shot a little bit longer so that everybody kind of looks evil, and everyone has some kind of motive. As you go through the movie, you genuinely will never guess, I don't think. Like, I probably went back and forth 3 or 4 times with people. I also really liked that they were able to actually utilize horror elements very well. There's a lot of moments that you would want to see in a horror movie. I think a great example is when that girl is on the ledge and she grabs like the machete, and as she's falling off, like she's cutting her hand. There's some really great horror elements in this.
They do a really good job with the kills that you get. There are some really nice on-screen kills, and I like how they shoot everything, because in particular, the one with the maze is one of those moments that's absolutely hilarious because it's human Pac-Man.
Which I actually wish I could be a part of. I love Pac-Man. The moment that I saw the 4 girls and the guy, I'm like, this is Pac-Man, John. This is so cool. I'm like, I want to go to this place.
Everyone wants to go. Who wouldn't want to be like chugging something down and then chasing like 4 bikini-clad babes?
Those were the power pellets, but it was tequila.
The whole situation of that maze, you have great comedy, it's well shot, and it builds tension and gives us a really cool kill. It just like has everything. Like the final shot when it's like craning over top of the maze and you have like the fun crazy Pac-Man side on one hedge, and then on the other hedge you've got like your killer and the victim. It's like 2 things that are divided, but they fit perfectly together.
And when you go back to older comedies like this, you expect the worst. I expected racist jokes, homophobic jokes, because in the mid-2000s these were rampant. Sure, there's a couple gay references, but nothing that is like derogatory in any sense.
What's up? Dude, don't be gay, man.
And I think the best joke, naming a character you, because it works on so many levels.
You? Carlos, these knives are filthy.
Bill Paxton was fantastic in this movie as Coconut Pete. He was definitely a knockoff Jimmy Buffett, and I thought he did a great job.
Play Margaritaville!
He's just a fun, likable guy. And the same can be said with a lot of the staff, to be honest. Like, I really enjoyed most of the characters. They all have like different quirks about them. I think Juan is probably my favorite. He's your typical Latin lover type of guy. And the way that he talks is just perfect.
Yeah, fiesta time, are you ready to party?
Since this movie first came out, I can no longer call someone Penelope.
That is a beautiful name. Penelope. Penelope.
How many Penelopes have you ever met?
3.
No way.
Yeah.
It's not that big of a number, but like I shouldn't have had that reaction.
Penelope. Penelope.
Obviously, the whole vibe of this movie is pretty upbeat as well. I just enjoy the island life.
Man, you look at that chassis on this one. Oh, dude. Wanna get nailed?
I enjoyed the score of this movie. I liked the music. It did set the tone. Because you really have two movies here. You have this great comedy and you have this great horror, and both soundtracks complemented the story that was being told.
But the clear winner between them is the Jimmy Buffett. Pina Coladasburg is easily one of the best songs ever made.
Hoisted another glass in Pina Coladaburg. Coconut milk with a pineapple splash. Don't forget that the rum comes third.
Which apparently Jimmy Buffett, he liked it so much that he played it on tour a few times. Speaking of parrot heads, I used to live with my friend Brendan, and his parents were like the biggest parrot heads. And we just thought it was like this joke. We're like, why? You're like juggalos to ICP, but these parrot heads are like, they're crazy obsessed with Jimmy Buffett, like crazy. And his parents would host this annual event where people would fly from Florida, from California, they'd fly from all over the states to come to my buddy's backyard where they had like a Jimmy Buffett band in the back. And it was great. We were like 17 years old and there'd be all these people, but we also knew that there was booze flowing. We'd skateboard, drink booze, hang out with all the parrot heads. It was fantastic. I love you guys.
You were in Margaritaville.
Yeah, it felt like a little Margaritaville. There was huts all over the place. There's statues and lays. It's like Pleasure Island. Brendan had Pleasure Island in his backyard. Well, that wasn't relevant at all to this movie, but I just wanted to give a shout out to the parrot heads, and I respect you. And you're way classier than the juggalos.
What attracted you to each other? Was it magnets?
It wasn't
meth.
magnets.
Meth was my second guess.
I felt they nailed another trope in horror movies, the nudity. The girls, they looked great, whether in bikinis or without bikinis on.
Oh, dude, look at that one, dude. Green bikini. Oh, dude.
Look at that little cheetah. Yeah.
Jodan Ladd being a gymnast was fantastic.
Wait. You are a gymnast?
Now, what didn't we like? I will say that while I liked the comedy and the horror, there were aspects of like the horror element that I didn't quite enjoy. Mainly it came down to when it was dark at night and people were accusing each other. It seemed like it dragged on. Like there's a few scenes that threw the pacing off a little bit because it did have to slow down for people to try and accuse each other, figure out motives, and I wasn't really a big fan of it. It was necessary because it exposed a lot of stuff. However, considering the upbeat nature of the rest of the movie, it felt awkward.
We swapped out a 6-foot Swedish broad for this guy? I'm 6'1".
I was kind of disappointed in the direction they went with how they showcased the killer. I would have preferred if they just stayed with a POV shot and then once the killer's revealed, it's okay, we can see who it is and it's great. But in this film, you see the outfit and the costume of the killer from the distance, and it does work with some of the gags, and I'm fine with that, but it also can take away from some of the mystery when trying to create red herrings.
I can see why they did the POV style sometimes too though, because like while we do see like the full body killer a lot, the POV sets up whether or not that is actually the killer or if it's somebody just screwing around. So it does work to some degree, but I can definitely see your point. If you see him, you're like, oh, well, it's not that guy. Now it's time for our final thoughts and ratings. This movie was shockingly better than I expected. Thankfully, they nailed it on basically everything. I was cracking up a lot of the time. Even when they weren't doing just straight up jokes, there's just a lot of fun and funny elements throughout that make the movie as a whole just way more upbeat, and I really enjoyed that. And I like that they were able to successfully merge in a killer and a whodunit and execute it properly, because you're constantly guessing who the killer might be, and because we have a larger cast, it could be anybody and for any reason, because it's also a comedy, because you know they could just make up whatever they want, and so long as it's funny enough, we'll accept it as an audience, and that's part of the fun of this. It has great production value, there's pretty solid kills, and really enjoyable characters. I unfortunately didn't like some of the pacing when it came to the horror elements. I think they were a bit off at times, but I'd still like to see a Club Dread 2. So I'm gonna give this 4 food fuckers out of 5.
I actually really like this film. It did a fantastic job just blending in these two genres of horror and comedy. The whodunit story aspect was well executed. It delivered with so many red herrings that you just had too hard of a time guessing who it was gonna be. All of our characters were enjoyable. The acting was great. And I think if you're just looking for something to throw on that you wanna laugh at, but still have that horror film feel to it, then I would recommend Club Dread. It's way better than what I think people realize. So with that being said, I'm gonna give this film 4.5 sexy limbo poles out of 5.
As always, thank you for watching. Like this video and comment below with your thoughts on the film if you've seen it. If you haven't and you do want to check it out, links are in the description. And if you want the opportunity to recommend a movie for us to review, check out the link to the Patreon, also in the description. And if this is your first time here, make sure you subscribe to the channel to stay up to date with everything Bloodbath and beyond.